This is Art Television.
Stay well connected at home or on the go with SLT Mobitel.
I told her that sometimes you can do this special chant. It's the Angulimala Paritta chant. And they asked, can I do this chant for them? I said no, because sometimes we do that chant, sometimes it's so powerful, the baby comes out straight away. And I've never had a baby being born during a talk. And also you were saying that that'd be terrible because, it's working now again, so I can't finish the story. Yes, I will finish the story. So she said, well, if it comes out, sometimes if it came out here, it may be pointing its feet at the Buddha, and that's supposed to be bad karma. And hopefully you were joking there, because it's only bad karma if you're intentionally supposed to be, doing some way of insulting somebody or something or some culture. But here in this Buddhism, we do have rituals, we do have cultural stuff. But I don't know if you've ever been in some of these temples in Asia. There's Buddhas all over the place. You can't point your feet anywhere without pointing at a Buddha. They're all around you. So a lot of time it's not just the actions, but it's just where it's coming from. So that's one of the reasons why we don't have so many rites and rituals in Buddhism. And if there is any rituals, we try and explain them what they are. So is Buddhism really a religion? And the answer is yes, for tax purposes. But please, if any of you are on the committees of Buddhist societies, don't tell that to the government, otherwise they'll strike you off. But anyway, that's part of Buddhism, that it makes it open to all sorts of other religions or no religions, free thinkers, all sorts of people. Because it's open, it's the meaning behind these things is what's really important. We do have many rituals. Some of those rituals are useful, but this is not a religion of rituals. It's very much a religion of peace and stillness and joy and the lack of stress, a sense of ease. Imagine if you came in here and there were so many rules of what you can wear, what you can't wear, how you should sit, what you should do. Sometimes that would make you feel like someone's always watching you and trying to find fault with you. Whenever I'm sitting here, I'm just very happy that you're here and you're getting something from this. That is something which is being taught, which is easing some of the stress of life. There's already too much stress on you. Isn't it wonderful you can come to a place, you can sit comfortably. Again, next to the walls are the best place to sit. They always go first of all. You've been here many times, you know where the best place is. Sitting against the wall there. Maybe we should get some upholstery on the wall, some padding there for you as well. Because this is actually where we learn how to be kind to our body. Now that's religion to me. How to be kind to your mind. How to be kind to your past. Are all of you saints? Have you never done anything wrong in your past? Have you never done anything which is shameful? I was telling this story to the monks earlier. I told this years ago, here in this hall, at a time when there were some monks in Thailand, but in other countries as well. And these monks, were being found out to not be real monks. They had mistresses. And so, I'm an honest monk. I've always been that way. And so I decided, on a Friday night, I put my head down to make my own confession. it's important to tell the truth so people know. So I put my head down and I said that some years ago I spent some of the happiest moments of my life, honestly, in the loving arms of another man's wife. We kissed, we hugged, we loved each other. And she was another man's wife. Great, you don't remember this. And I said, that before people actually walked outside the door, I said that woman was my mother. It's my father's wife. I was being honest. In the loving arms of another man's wife. That's true, isn't it? But I said it that way because I wanted people to know how you can add 2 and 2 together and make 5. That was actually an accurate statement. And I said that purposely to show that how often it is the case we make a judgment and it sounds reasonable, but then it's not. There's another solution to it. And that's an important part of what we do here. How many times you've got a partner in life, committed to each other, and you split up? Why? Did you really understand the full story of what's going on? When I first said that years ago, there's a few people actually got up from their chairs and they were about to go through the door before I gave the answer. I did nothing wrong. I was a layperson at the time as well. That was my father's wife. Loving arms in the loving arms of another man's wife. My mother. My father's wife. So what we're actually saying there is just be very careful how you make conclusions. Because sometimes that can wreck a marriage. I always say that give other people the benefit of the doubt. Don't judge them harshly. And I've often done that with just overcoming anger or resentment to sometimes what people I feel they've done to me. In the old days, it would be very easy to get angry at somebody. But I found out when you have anger, what you're actually doing, you're having a little court case in your mind. That person, who's upset you is on trial, and you are the prosecutor and also the judge. When I saw that, that's very unfair. You can't get a truthful verdict without having a defense attorney. So when I saw that, I decided before I get upset or angry about anyone, I would make sure I would deliberately sort of find out reasons for the defense. Maybe they were having a bad day that day, or maybe that's not what they really meant, or maybe that they were in a bad mood or something. They didn't really mean that. And I did that so many times. Even like with emails. In emails, sometimes you think you're telling the truth in an email. It sounds good to you, but other people read it in a totally different way. And so I notice when it's face-to-face conversations, you can see the reaction in somebody else very quickly. You realize, that's not what I meant. I just said it in the wrong way. I didn't give enough information. But it's easy to feel upset at somebody. And I realize that you're not really judging them fairly. Always have a defense as well as a prosecutor. And whenever there was any sort of misunderstanding in that way, there always was misunderstandings. I always found that I could only give an open verdict. I could never really prosecute anyone. I could never say, you're guilty, you're obviously guilty, you're a bad person. And that's one of the reasons why in all those years when I went to visit prisons and saw some of these people put in jail, when I looked at them, first of all I was quite scared when I first went into prison. What they've done? Are they murderers? Are they violent? Am I going to be safe in here? But I felt totally safe inside the prisons. Even I saw some prisoners who really were psychotic. And one of the places I went to when I was visiting UK was in Broadmoor. There was the prison hospital for the criminally insane. And one of the people I saw in there was quite a famous prisoner, one of the Cray twins, Ronnie Cray. Apparently they made a movie about him later on. And he was notorious. But when you saw him, he shook my hand and said, "How are you?" He was so polite. And also at the end of our short meeting, he shook my hand again and said, "When I get a few quid, that's British money, I'll donate it to your monastery." He was in jail, he didn't have any money at all. But there was a lot of kindness there. And this was a notorious person who was very violent and madly violent. So sometimes it made me not being able to judge anybody. These were really good people sometimes who'd done one bad thing. And it was from that time on I always remembered that there are no such things as criminals. There's no such things as murderers, thieves. There's only people who've done robberies. There's people who've done crimes. That doesn't make them a criminal. They're more than that. And sometimes, you see why they did those things. You find out the reasons behind it. And sometimes they're the drugs, peer pressures, making mistakes, making wrong decisions. But sometimes they're much more than the offence for which they've been judged for their life. And sometimes you see that forgiveness and kindness can actually do so much more to help them. Okay, one of the gentlemen, who was one of the people who was organising this birthday fundraising for me, he lives over in Hong Kong. He sent me this really delightful little story. I'm not quite sure even the country it came from, but there was a horse which no one could actually tame, a wild horse. And he decided to give it a try, but not training it by hitting it or starving it or punishing it in any which way, but just being patient and being kind. And of course it took him a long time, but after a while this horse, would allow him to ride on the horse's back. Became like an ordinary horse. People thought it could never be. They used the word broken. That's a terrible word to use, to break a horse. He just used kindness and patience. And this horse, would always, be this guy's friend, would greet him, when he would come home from some other business. He would greet him by actually putting his mouth on the mouth of this owner, would actually kissing him. But then, unfortunately, after so many years, the owner died and passed away. And this guy in Hong Kong, Gerald, sent me this beautiful photograph with the story of when this guy was in the coffin, dead. The horse came up and kissed its friend, kissed the coffin. Obviously, even that horse recognized that there was its friend. I just gave it one last kiss. And this is those sorts of stories. I'm sure you have stories like that as well. Punishment doesn't help. Kindness does. And forgiveness does as well. So all of your past, I'm sure you've got some terrible things which you've done in the past. I've mentioned many of my terrible things. Just given my mother a birthday present of an eel. I thought it was very funny. It wasn't funny. It was funny to me. My poor mother screamed. And all these other sort of silly things you did, thinking it was funny, but you got it wrong. I wasn't a bad boy, but sometimes you don't realize the effects of what you can do for other people. But one of the things I did notice, my family were always very forgiving, and so was my teacher Ajahn, always very kind. And even I remember that one of these monks, who was one of the strictest monks in the whole of Thailand, that was this monk called Ajahn Mahabur. He was really strict. And he had this rule in the monastery that only have one meal a day. And you couldn't start eating before he started eating. And when he finished, everybody else had to finish. That's why all those monks, only one meal a day, they always ate very fast. Because sometimes when Ajahn Mahabur stopped eating, then everybody had to. And I remember on this occasion, I'd just gone there for the first time, and I was at the end of the line there, I was eating my lunch. They told me to be fast, and when he finished, everyone had to finish, me too. And I put down my spoon, and he looked at me, and he said, "Carry on eating." Honestly, I was really thin in those days. No skin and bones, because the food which I had in Ajahn Chah's monastery was very, very lack of nutrition, very simple food. And so I was skin and bones. He saw that and he said, "Carry on eating." And that touched my heart. It wasn't I needed to eat more, it was just his kindness. So I carried on eating. And that was the sort of thing which, how you don't break a monk, you're kind to them. And that is how they grow and develop. The same to each one of you. I wish I could know you better and just be able to speak to you better, for more personal time, but there's too many of you, only one of me. Try to teach the monks to take those tasks on. But you all know that those of you who've spoken to me, if ever I've been critical of you, always kindness, that works. And that's something, that gentleness which is supposed to come out in the talks and also in the personal things which I can say to you. And it's not just to reassure you, it's to show you how to practice. When you look at your past, what have you done? Please be kind to that. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Don't be so self-critical. Because if you do, it means you tend to lose your confidence. When you lose your confidence, you can't do anything much in this world. You lose so many opportunities. One of those wonderful opportunities which you can have and you should take is the opportunity to say sorry. There are some people you live with them for such a long time. You've done things which could have hurt them. And one of the nice things to be able to do is to look at them and say, what I did, please forgive me. And you mean it. And that can be so powerful that if any of you see any of the ordination ceremonies which we do, and we've done quite a few down at Bodhinyana Monastery recently, just before the start of the Rains retreat. And during those ordination ceremonies, one of the parts which I always look forward to, honestly, is when the candidate, usually get their mothers and fathers along as well, they actually bow down to their mum and their dad, give them 3 bows. They've never done that when they were their children at home working. They bow down to their mum and dad and they say, "Mum, Dad, whatever I've done over the time you've been my parents since the earliest age, I ask your forgiveness. Things which I didn't do, which I should have done. I'm trying my best. Please forgive me." And you always see, especially the mother, but often the father as well, you can see tears coming out of their eyes. Because it's sincere, it's honest. They realise they always love their children, but the fact that their children have the guts and the sincerity to say sorry. It's beautiful. And in all the years which I've been a monk, this is my 48th year as a monk now. I'm sure another couple of years will be 50 years as a monk. I mean, that's quite sort of a milestone. I don't know why, but anyway, probably is. But in all those years as a monk, sometimes you have met celebrities. And one of those celebrities which I met was actually in Malaysia. She had her own TV show. She was very popular. Zandria, her name was. And I think she still has a TV show somewhere. I hope she's listening to this, because she was getting married in Malacca. And she was amazed that she'd already decided the date and the place of her marriage in Malacca. And it just so happened by chance I was teaching a retreat in Malacca that day. And she came up to me and asked, as she sent email, Ajahn Brahm, I've been following you for years, and you're teaching a retreat in the place I'm going to get married. Can you please come and give a blessing on my marriage ceremony? So I talked to the organisers, and we could arrange it, swap a few sort of talks over, and go to a place only 5 minutes away, and then go and give her a blessing and also a little bit of advice. And let the wedding, with me included, was actually featured on, I think it was New Idea of Vogue, one of the big glossy magazines, the Malaysian editions. The first time I got into a glossy magazine. But anyway, that afterwards she wrote this story, a follow-up. She said one of the most amazing pieces of advice she'd got from me on that wedding, what really kept her and her partner together, was I asked them every year on your anniversary, have a private dinner or just a cup of coffee together, and take turns, it doesn't matter who, just giving each other just little gifts. Nothing expensive. They were wealthy, you can afford it, but don't. Just a tiny gift. And then whoever starts first, tell your husband, whatever I've done by body, by speech, or by mind, which has hurt you, either intentionally or just by accident, because when we talk sometimes we're misunderstood, or things I didn't do which I should have done, please forgive me. And doing it honestly, meaningfully, sincerely. If you're not totally sincere about this, you shouldn't do it at all. And then it's the other person's turn to do the same. Anything which I have done by body, speech or mind, thoughts, words, actions which have hurt you or embarrassed you, irritated you. I'm a human being, I do make mistakes. Please forgive me as well. And then what it's doing is you're letting go of all those faults which we can focus on so easily. It destroys our lives. It certainly destroys your relationships. All the kindness, the goodness, the softness, the care which you've shared. A lot of times we don't even recognize or remember that. Just that fault which really ruined our day. I don't know why it couldn't ruin your day. It's only one little thing. But we focus on it, we emphasize it, and we take it out of all proportion. But just as someone can say, sorry, I really ask your forgiveness. It's a beautiful thing. She said that kept them together for years. Especially those first years when they're getting used to each other. It's a very beautiful thing to do, acts of forgiveness, and that's one of the things which we will do at Bodhinyana Monastery on Thursday, the first day of the Rains Retreat. We resolved to actually stay the 3 months in that particular venue. That's part of a retreat. But there's so many monks and novices and anagarikas there. Even I don't know the final number. And they're still coming. A few of them, like Ajahn, should be arriving back from Europe in a few days' time. And we have Venerable Lokahita is coming this evening. And he's from South Korea. It's an international group of people there. And I love that. It's not just, people I know, or I know them all, but it's a wide range of people. But then, first day of the Rains Retreat, what's one of the parts of the ceremony? We ask forgiveness of one another. Anything which I've done, body, speech or mind, which may have irritated you or hurt you, things which I said which I shouldn't say, I really am sorry. I don't mean it, but sometimes those things come out of your mouth. And that we have almost like a tradition in Buddhism. If you ask forgiveness, you have to give it. But sometimes people say, but what happens if someone's done something really bad? Doesn't matter, forgive it. Why not? There's so many stories like that which it takes spirituality to another level. The story of the lady, I read this in a magazine about a year ago, that she was in Auschwitz. She had a twin, so that she was chosen, her and her twin, to be experimented on. And that was with Dr. Mengele, I think it was. And she was like the control, while her sister was all these terrible experiments on her. Her sister died there. And the one which survived saw it all. Because she was like the control of the experiment, there were twins, the same genes. She survived, but she saw it all. You can imagine what that does to you. Seeing yourself just like a laboratory rat. And seeing the people you love being experimented on, like tortured. So you can imagine the anger in her. But then years later, she managed to find one of the doctors. There was only a junior doctor there at the time, but he was one of the people who experimented on her sister. She found him. And she sent this letter to him saying, I know who you are, you killed my sister, tortured her. Please meet me in Auschwitz. They said the time and the date, just a private meeting. And apparently the guy felt so guilty that he went there and met her. And when they met, just the two of them, she said, I forgive you. It's almost unforgivable acts. She said, no, I forgive you. You should never have done that. It hurt me, and my sister killed her. But I forgive you. When she wrote that story, she's passed away now, she wrote the story, she said that transformed her from being a victim to being a victor. She transcended, gone past, overcame just the hurt of the past. Because for so many years, that hurt of the past, you can imagine what it does to you. You can't have trust in other people. Trauma, PTSD, and also just no happiness. But that forgiveness of someone whom hardly anyone in this world will be able to forgive freed her. He wasn't interviewed afterwards. I don't know what happened to him. But nevertheless, it's a beautiful thing to do, to give that forgiveness. What was there? Another story of this guy who I don't regularly go through Brisbane. Australia's a big country, and there's many friends I have in Brisbane. I should go there more often if you had the time. But anyway, I was passing through there, and so somebody invited me for the dana. That's my lunch, just me. And I went to their house, just talking before the meal was offered. And then he said, "Oh, how many children have you got?" He said, "I've got two sons. One was there." So where's the other one? He says, "Oh, we haven't seen each other for the last 8 or 9 years. They were estranged." And they said, "Why?" He said, "Well, we just don't get on." And the elder brother was there. So I asked the elder brother, "Do you know where your brother is?" "Yeah, he's in town." "Do you know his telephone number?" I says, "Yeah, of course I do. So please give him a call on your mobile phone." So the elder brother gave the younger brother a call on the phone. He said, "Give the phone to me." And I said, "This is Ajahn Brahm here." And this was I am quite well known. Some people say I'm famous. I don't know if that word is correct. But nevertheless, I do remember some time ago, the head of the Conservative Party here in West Australia, Mike Nahan, some years ago. He came, I think, was the head of multicultural affairs when the Tory government was in power here in Western Australia. And so he came along to one of these Buddhist events, and he went onto the microphone and he said, "I just returned from Sri Lanka. And part of going to Sri Lanka, this was many years ago, was climbing up Adam's Peak, Sripada." And he said the guide there was talking to him and said, "Who are you?" And he was a minister in the state government. "What state government?" "West Australia." "Oh, do you know Ajahn Brahm?" He said, "Right now." "What?" And they realised I was quite well known over there. So, I do have a reputation there. But nevertheless, this was actually, where was I going with this, with the forgiveness? That's the trouble when I go into another story. I don't plan these talks, okay? They really are off the cuff. And that's an important part. I give so many talks, and sometimes you're very busy. Even Mocha, he just asked me, he said, "I don't know how you do this." And sometimes I don't. I just sit here, no plans at all, and start opening my mouth, and this is what comes out. Now, where was this coming from? It's got on another sort of angle. Even when I do the guided meditation, the phone. Oh yeah, thank you. So, I said, "This is Ajahn Brahm here." Ajahn Brahm. I was a famous monk. In this guy's idea, said, "I'm in your father's house for a dana. Please come over now." And I hung up. He didn't have a chance to object. And he also realised, because I was a well-known monk, it's a bit dangerous, not to follow my orders. I don't have any power over him at all, but he thought that. So I made use of that situation. So he came over, and I got him to sit right next to his father. His father was looking this way, the son was looking the other way. They wouldn't even look at each other. But they were sitting there because I ordered them to. Then I asked the father, "What happened? 8 years ago, why have you just lost contact with your son for all these years?" And his father answered, "I can't remember." And so I asked the son, his strange son, "Why haven't you seen your father?" "I can't remember either." That was weird. I don't know if that's always the case, but when you get upset at somebody, why? In that case, this was true. I'm being accurate, that they were estranged and neither could remember why. Even if you do remember, it's not a good reason. Never is. And so I said, "Okay, it's enough." So you look at each other. You got blood relations, father and son. Okay, and let's put an end to this now, which they did. It was very good for Bodhinyana Monastery. I know we had an executive meeting earlier about how to raise funds for Bodhinyana Monastery or the city centre here. And so they gave us a big donation afterwards. Imagine that's your son Well, that's your father. You haven't seen each other for years. And to get some monk come up and just solve the problem. That's a beautiful thing. Okay, I mean, you can win the lottery, but win your family back, that's something which is far more powerful. And they forgave each other. They didn't really understand what they were forgiving each other for. They forgot over all those years. Just, I don't go to my dad's house, I don't go to my son's house. And that was a beautiful thing to see. Not caring about the donation, but caring that, you could somehow or other, use, your authority, whatever that is, to actually bring people together, help people. All it takes is a tiny bit of forgiveness. It's not much. There's another case, good they're not here, but it was husband and his wife, and she was just cleaning his jacket at home. I looked inside the jacket pocket, and there was a receipt in there for one of the brothels in Perth. She called him out. He was actually visiting prostitutes. And she was so upset. Right, that's it. Divorce. But they were both Buddhists, so they came to the temple, Bodhinyana Monastery. And they have to be sincere with me, so I talked with them, and I said, "Did you do that?" He said, "Yes, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done. I made a mistake." And the interesting part was I asked him, "Do you still love your wife?" He said, "Yes, I really do." "Why do you do that?" "I don't know, but I still love her." And I asked her, "What do you think?" She said, I can't trust him anymore. It's all over. And when I looked at both of them, I actually trusted both of them. I said, "Will you ever do that again?" He said, "No, honest." He said that in front of me, in front of the big Buddha statue. "Can you forgive him, give him another chance?" He said, "No, that was just too bad. If he does it once, he'll do it again." So we took the forgiveness to the next level. I said, "This is something we do in Western countries. Can you grant him parole?" What parole means is, you're not going to divorce him yet, but you give him this possibility of forgiveness, maybe 1 year on. But he has to make sure he gives you all the passwords to his mobile phones, computers, any sort of bank accounts he has, you can have a look at them, so you can find out that he's keeping his promise to be faithful to you. It took me such a long time to convince her to do that, but she did. And 1 year later, he kept a very clean slate. They had this wonderful relationship to each other. He realized how lucky he was that she could forgive him, but she had to have confidence he was worth forgiving, and that he was trustworthy. So he had to open himself up completely, all his records, and answer her questions, with evidence if necessary, so we'd never do that again. And I'm very happy with that, because they come to our monastery every week. I think it's out of gratitude. He kept their marriage together. And little things like that I did, and I just gave them the way to keep it together, and how powerful forgiveness is. When you don't trust anybody, they usually, they live up to what you expect, and they're naughty, they don't behave. But when you give somebody trust, and you really give them trust, even with parole, it's amazing just how that raises people up. Even last week, when I said over at Bodhinyana Monastery, Rains Retreat, there's a lot of monks there, and there's a lot of duties to be done. And so we usually have rosters, and so somebody spends hours working out rosters, who's going to clean the toilets, who's going to sweep the roads. And I said, no, let's have no rosters. put up the job there, there's jobs there which need to be done, and people can volunteer. If they don't volunteer, fine. They're not going to be forced to do any jobs. Total volunteer. And I was just so pleased. All these years I've been teaching these monks, some young monks, some more mature monks, but the first time no rosters. And the list we put up of people who the jobs would need to be done, they all got volunteers the first day. They're all in there, just filling it all out. You trusted them. And they exceeded my trust only one day. So that's a very beautiful. When you have a monastery like that, I'm very happy to be there. You don't have to tell people what to do. They volunteer to do that. That kindness, that service, that wanting to help out, that type of attitude, that joy, shows me their meditation is getting really good. Because the meditation, you don't force meditation. I get sometimes people question me about this. You mean you just sit there and you just trust the mind? As a passenger, I said, yes. It's impossible. You have to do something. Make some sort of resolution. Decide to watch the breath or decide to do something else. Keep all those defilements away. No. I've done this demonstration so many times, but it fits in now. The water in this cup. How can I hold this still? Mindfulness doesn't work. It's still moving. Concentration. I'm really aware, I'm trying. It doesn't become still at all. How does this become perfectly still? You put it down. It's moving more now, but be patient. And if you're patient, you trust. I trust this water to become still, because that's the nature of gravity. When I look at that, that water is so still, I could never hold it that still. That's how meditation works. If you have to hold it still, you get tired. You can only do that for a time. If you put it down, let it go, it becomes still so easily, so beautifully. That's why the joy of meditation builds up. It's something which is really spiritual. Yes, you have to work, do your jobs, do your chores, but there comes a time when you just let go and you trust. And when you have that trust, life becomes so much easier. You're not afraid, you're not run by fear. Our world is often run by fear. Fear of losing your job, fear of getting COVID, fear of people not liking you, fear of people not enjoying your talk. I gave that up a long time ago. You like it, you don't like it. I'm not afraid. Because of that, giving up fear, you can let go and things become peaceful. The talks become beautiful and helpful and inspiring. That's their nature when you get out of the way and let them happen. And honestly, I never give a talk. I really mean that. I don't give talks. I just get out of the way and let it happen. That's why you can give, it's not just a talk on a Friday night, so many talks a week. The last talk I gave was yesterday morning. That was a talk to the United States. Because, yesterday morning was actually Wednesday evening in US. A nice talk. The best part of that talk, I must admit, at the very end of the talk, the host sort of said, usually our organisation, you've helped us, that we give a donation. So all the donations collected today, we're going to give 60% to your organisation, the BSWA, and 40% for our organisation. I said, no, I don't agree with that split. I said 100% to your organisation. Nothing to me. It's just a joy to give talks, not getting anything out of it. Please excuse me, BSWA representatives. you didn't make any money out of that. But you get so much joy out of it. And people say, yeah, that's dana. That's generosity. And it's wonderful that I can practice that generosity as well, as I've done to you tonight, and done to you for the last 9 months, giving talks on Friday nights. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for listening. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so we've got any questions from the floor? From any of you people here? Okay, we've got some questions online for sure. And if you do need a talk during the time when the monks and nuns don't come here, please remember there's hundreds of talks online. Whatever you want to listen to has been mentioned. Buddhism and coffins. That's one of the talks I remember giving. Buddhism and bananas. They're online there somewhere. Anyway. From Melissa. Please can you speak about loneliness on the spiritual path? As I let go of attachments, I feel less in common with people who used to be my friends and causes I used to care about. A Mel in Australia. That loneliness, if you like yourself, if you're friends with yourself, if you enjoy your own company, you never ever feel lonely. And I say my own 6 months personal retreat, which I did a few years ago, for those 6 months I never saw a human being, never talked to a human being. That's honest. Just people would put food in a box and I would go and pick it up later, eat it, wash the bowl and put the bowl back in the box. For 6 months I never saw anybody. There was no telephone or email or anything. It was total solitude. I loved that. And the reason was that I am my best friend. So when I'm with myself, I just sit down or rest if I need to rest, chant if I want to chant, read or whatever, and I'm kind to me. My body and I are so close. We're best friends. We're mates. I'm not afraid of me. I don't criticize me. And just the way that I was meditating with you. Feet, how are you? Knees, how are you doing? I'm kind to my body, so my body is kind to me. And my mind, yeah, I make mistakes or do silly things, but I forgive those, I laugh at them and I share them with you. It's a wonderful way of living, not embarrassed. I know everyone makes mistakes, but I let you know them. We laugh together. And that means it makes me human, makes mistakes, but you forgive them. You're not afraid of yourself, which means you love yourself in a beautiful spiritual way. So you're at peace. So give me 3 months of solitude. Oh my goodness, I'd love that. Unfortunately, those 3 months of the Rains Retreat, for 2.5 of those months I'll be teaching the other monks, but I still have 2 weeks. It was my holiday. Where would you like to go for the most perfect holiday in the world? For me, it's my cave. People bring me food, and I just have plenty to eat. You can stay in there as long as you want. Just meditating. And I don't decide to do something. Years ago, I remembered all I need to do is just go in there and relax to the max. And then the mind by itself goes into these beautiful states of mind. You have wonderful fun. I'm just looking forward to my retreat now. To Kiran. Dear Ajahn, should we help ourselves first, get enlightened, and then help others? Or should I take up the opportunity where I can help myself and others by being a meditation teacher? It's from India. Look, would you allow yourselves to be operated on by somebody who's not a doctor? Wouldn't it be better actually to become a doctor first before you do operations? Wouldn't it be better to become enlightened first, at least to be a stream winner, before you teach others? Who would you like to operate on you? If it was you and you had the opportunity, you'd get the best surgeon in Perth. If you can't get a good surgeon in Perth, you'd go overseas, and if you got the money, and get someone in even Bangkok or Singapore or something, do this therapeutic medical tourism. Because this is your body, you want the very best. So if you want a meditation teacher, who do you want to get? Someone who doesn't know how to meditate? Someone who doesn't really know what enlightenment is, what kindness is, what forgiveness is? What would you want? So you decide to please don't just become a meditation teacher when you don't know what you're really talking about. Really get in there and become qualified. Who can qualify you? Only you know whether you're at peace. You know what you're doing. You have to be honest. And then when you're honest, then you find you can really help people. Oh, this is a nice name, Rainbow Zebra. Dear Ajahn, my mum says I don't like Buddhists because they think sick, suffering people have done something to deserve it in a past life. That is not true. How should I respond to that? No, sick or suffering people need some help. They need doctors, but not just doctors of the body, doctors of the mind as well. That's why where the mindfulness tradition started, John Kabat-Zinn realized so many people just are so anti some religions that, if you said this is Buddhist, many of the hospitals over in United States wouldn't even let them in. So by making it sound non-religious, just calling it mindfulness, and taking away the other part of Buddhism from it, then they could get actually much more traction in the hospitals. He did that, and that's made mindfulness so strong in our world. But it is basic Buddhist practice. But anyway, that's what Buddhists give to the world. They don't just, that's almost like an excuse, not a reason. They think sick, suffering people have done something to deserve it in a past life. We also think that happy people, healthy people who have a lot of success in their life, that you've done something to deserve that, but not just in past life, in this life. You've had a good attitude. You sacrificed a lot, say to be a doctor or to be a owner of a business or something. You worked hard, and if you've done really well, really well by not exploiting other people, by being a kindly business, that's the very best. I still mention that some businesses are kindly. And one of these businesses I often quote, it's a long time ago now, but it was a company called Farrelly and Sons. And they had a business maintenance, or building maintenance company in the UK. And they won the business prize that year. In 1 year, they had trebled their turnover, doubled their profits, or something like that. Amazing results. By just doing a very simple business strategy. And that strategy was banning overtime. At the end of the 38 hours or 40 hours, whatever it was, you had to go home. And you couldn't take work home with you. You worked in the office or in the company. This was pre-COVID times. And that's all you did. End of the day, out of here, go home. Because they realized you have families. You don't have families, you've got your social life. It's important you have time for that. And if anyone is sick, you get your sick leave. What that actually meant was people, imagine you worked for a company like that. You do your 38 hours or whatever it is a week, and that's all. And you're banned from doing more than that. You'd love to work for a company like that. You'd love to be a committee member of a Buddhist society who enforces that. Because it's caring for you, realizing there's more to your life than just the business or the work. And what that meant, that the turnover of staff went to close to zero. Nobody wanted to get rid of their jobs and go and apply for another job. The job satisfaction was way up in the stratosphere. And also, the people really wanted to make sure that company was successful. It was just a little attitude of caring for their staff. When everybody cared for one another, had huge increase in productivity. Everyone was healthier, happier, could spend time with their kids, could rest at night. I often mention this, one of the biggest reasons for depression, cancer, so many other illnesses, people don't get enough rest. Do you get enough rest? Put your hands up if you could always do with a bit more rest. I'll put my hand up as well. I'm taking the rest soon because it's a rage retreat. And that's what we do it for our health of body and mind. And when you're allowed to do that, imagine just your productivity. It's a much happier monastery when you let people trust them to go and take a rest. So anyway, that is actually how Buddhists behave, or they should behave. That's how I try and make sure we behave. Last question, or not quite, there's another question afterwards. My partner calls you the lovely monk who hasn't still learned to wear the robe properly. My question is, why don't the monks upgrade what you wear to something more comfortable? This is comfortable. That's why I wear it this way. If I straighten up the robe, it becomes uncomfortable. What is proper? Wearing a robe. This is proper enough for me. I am rebellious. I've always been rebellious, not doing things which other people do or say, to making sure you understand what is the purpose of the robe. This is something which we chant. It's actually for covering up your private parts, which seeing it might offend others, for keeping you cool in the hot weather, keeping you warm in the cool weather, only for the maintenance of your bodily health, keeping away mosquitoes and flies and stuff. That's what the purpose of the robe is. It's not a fashion statement. It's how it's comfortable. Why do the monks upgrade you? A lot of times I forbid them from upgrading me. My robe should be no better, no worse than all the other monks' robes. Although that sometimes my robe does get upgraded without my consent. When I went to a fundraiser in Melbourne, I think it was a year ago or a couple of years ago, when I went there, one of the monks, was Venerable Ajahn, he took my robe and pulled it off me. He gave me another robe so he could auction my old robe. I didn't know what he was up to. But of course you give consent because it was an act of kindness for others. So that's where sometimes my robe gets lost because it gets auctioned off. And sometimes that, many of these auctions and fundraisers, it's not the worth of the robe, it's not getting a bargain. It's almost an excuse. Have a bit of fun and also to raise funds for something. A lot of times whatever funds are raised, sometimes they say a robe, and whoever wins that robe, they give it to somebody else. So it can be auctioned twice on the same night. And it's not the idea of money purchasing stuff. It's just an excuse for giving. For making sure this is for a retreat centre. We've got a beautiful retreat centre in China Grove, which I insist is always for free. You can give a donation afterwards, but if you don't give a donation, you can't afford it, you can still go in there. That's important for me to make sure it's free. Same in this place. We never have charging people to come in here or charging people to go out. This is all for free. And that's just... And we do really well that way. Inspiring people, not by charging people. So that's actually why we do things this way. Just silly things. You know, I've got this little teddy bear I was talking about earlier. It's only a tiny bear, but it's what's so cute. So you know what the reserve price for that little bear is? $1,000. And I'm sure that somebody will buy that and they'll give it back again, and they'll auction it twice or three times. Just an excuse for making a donation to a retreat centre later on. It's just excuses. Anyway.